Hello, everyone, and thanks again for joining us today for the Business After Windows live Q&A sessions. And again, remember that during these sessions, you can submit your questions live on Twitter by tweeting at BizAfterWindows with the hashtag #TheNewCloud. Up next, we're going to be talking to Paul Pluschkell. I knew I'd mess it up. He talked to us about competitive advantages of software in the cloud. And Paul is GENBAND's Executive Vice President of Strategy and Cloud Services. He's responsible for developing and implementing corporate strategy as well as leading business development for the company. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to go ahead and jump right into the questions. First one, loved the comment about software being so simple that documentation is not required. What are your recommendations to software developers so that they can develop products that people just get?
I would say go out and buy like 3 or 4 trampolines and look at the instructions and see how long it takes you to build them. And one of them will take 6 hours, one will take 5 hours, one will take 3 hours, and one will take about an hour because they put it together and they boxed it in such a way and made it so simple that you simply just connect things that say A to A, B to B. And when you design your software, it should be the same. In my generation, we used to read large manuals and we'd have to look online at videos to learn how to use things, or those yellow books about making things simple. And nowadays, when I see the interaction my kids have with their smartphone and the apps, they tend to always use the ones that are simple and they really solve or the need that they're looking for. So software developers should be like great builders or architects and open a few packages and try and do things and find out the experience that you would like. And it really is all about experience.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about making things simple enough that people want to use them. They're not overwhelmed with so many things. But I've actually had a situation recently where somebody told me about an app that they had used because it offered several different functionalities. And it was a Starbucks app, and they recently revamped it, and it was just so boring that they no longer wanted to use it. So what are your thoughts on something like that?
Yeah, it's a tough one without knowing more about the context. I will say that there was an article today, I actually tweeted it, that mentioned that 10% of all profits are lost to complexity. So whether you're designing something that's too complex and you have to take time with your customer to let them know, whether a customer's experience is poor and they leave the product or stop generating revenue for you because it was just overkill. So I think it really goes down to experiences. It's not demographics into who you're building it for, whether it's a technology person or a lay person. It's really about the experience that it's generating in the problem or the business that it's solving.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you so much. The clip about how nobody understands the cloud is so true. Do you agree that if the tech industry stops pushing the cloud and focuses more on the user experiences, we would all be better off?
Yeah, I almost think that's happening. I think businesses just don't get it, right? Businesses started adopting bring your own device, and people are using the software that makes them more productive. And once enough software is proliferated in an enterprise, then a CTO or CIO will say, yes, let's adopt that. We'll do some governance around it, make sure it sits in the framework and security protocols that we need. And I think what really happens is that's all going to be user driven. So it's really important that we're listening all the time to what users want and what users need and how it's used. And I think the user experience drives everything. So when you look at technology, you use more technology while I think you're a grad student, Margaret, you said, while you're in school than you're probably using today at the workplace. You're probably so proficient with Skype and every other way to communicate that when they said let's go on Google Hangouts and let's do something, this was second nature to you. In fact, some of the things probably even seemed awkward compared to some of the apps that you use for school. So I think we're learning a lot that we're past the digital kind of immigrant stage, which is my era, where I don't have a digital signature that lives on for my entire life. It started at a certain point in time. My kids' digital signature is here from the time they were born till eternity, and they grew up with technology, so it becomes an extension of their hand. It becomes like their fingers, and we no longer have to look back. If you look at the workforce and the maturity of the workforce, more people are leaving that were digital immigrants every year. It's such an alarming rate that digital natives are really here to stay, and that's what we have to really service, and those are the people that we have to cater to.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. When apps are connected through the IoT and specific apps have to be used in order to make things connect, Do you think that user experience will continue to be as important as it has become today?
Again, we go into context. I think the rate at which the Internet of Things and devices are coming online is exponential. So there's so many things that aren't going to require a user experience until it gets to the outcome. So if you think about it, if there's a million parking meters talking to each other to make sure that to find out where an open parking space is, the experience between the meters is irrelevant. The experience to an end user looking for the parking spot is. So is it the 1 in 1 million? Is it 50 in a million? So we have to look at all the way through to what the outcome is and the context and the use case. So for devices to talk to each other, the experience won't matter just as long as that it's working, but the outcome experience the end user will.
So it sounds like what you're saying then is that when it comes to the Internet of Things, the user experience is almost going to be predetermined by the business connections that are made between the things, right? So it's not necessarily where now the user has the power to say, I want to use this app or I want to use this app. It's kind of almost going to be handed to them.
No, I'm going to disagree slightly. I'm sorry. I'm going to say that the outcome or the experience is going to be enhanced by the things that are connected. Mm-hmm. The usability will be determined by the end user. Less apps will be built and saying, I'm going to build this in hope, Margaret. I hope that you need this and you really want to use it. I'm going to spend $100 million and design something I know everybody wants to use, kind of the Steve Jobs model that really worked for him, but not everybody. I think the new way of doing business is, look, I'm going to open up my toolbox for you and make it really simple for you to put these pieces together so that your experience is unique to you and you love the outcome. And all these great things that are talking to the Internet of Things, you're going to control because you're going to make them work for you the way that you want them to work. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when we get to like utopia.
Ah, yes, utopia. Okay. If everyone is buying tech, do you expect that we will see a reverse in trends where apps will now attempt to accommodate a specific audience instead of working for everyone just to be able to stand out from the crowd?
Who's not buying tech? Do you buy tech, Margaret?
No, just kidding. Absolutely.
You don't even know you're buying tech, but you're buying tech, right? Because almost everything we do, whether it's your smart television, whether it's getting on Skype, your smartphone, which is probably 40% of how you navigate through life, with all the applications. So everybody is already buying tech. So it's a misnomer to think that we're finally realizing that everybody is buying tech and recent software is eating the world. When you go inside a Tesla and you look at the beautiful interface in the car, you take the Apple remote and you see how simple it is. When you use your Nest thermometer and you see how great it does and it really looks at your energy management, we're buying an outcome that we like. But at the core, it's technology making it better. So technology is so embedded in everything because of software today, we're all buying tech. We're finally starting to realize it, and I love the people that are telling everybody to start programming. Everybody will start programming. It becomes easier. When it's not another forced language that we have to learn or a new way of doing things, when it's really just something that we drag and drop and we make work the way we think relevant. So I think in like 20 years it's going to be incredible what we're able to do with technology without labeling ourselves as an engineer or a software design artist.
Do you think that when that future arrives, it'll be like now how people lament having written a handwritten letter, right? So in the future, maybe they're going to think about back in the good old days when people were programming using Python or JavaScript.
I'm just not a buggy whip guy. I know that technology lasts a lot longer and things don't change as quickly as I think we'd like them to. I was hoping we'd be in the era of the Jetsons by now, right? Wouldn't you love to get in your spaceship and go home without traffic? Wouldn't you love to have somebody, just telling you what you want for dinner and having it come out all pre-cooked, right? We're not there yet, but it's growing, and it's because we're putting innovation in the hands of the many now. Before it was in the hands of the few, and we're going to see drastic changes. Maybe not the large-scale changes of getting to Mars and things until we really empower the people. I love the idea, like simple things like Kickstarter, where now if you want to do something, you have a means to an end by going to the crowd for funding. There's so many collaborative components on the web where we can collaborate with people to create something great and be a piece of that as opposed to having to be the whole thing. So I think innovation is growing leaps and bounds with scale as we really allow the wisdom of crowds and collaboration and more outcomes of the service to happen. I forgot the original question. I got so far off on the Jetsons, but I'm so excited about where innovation is leading us. In the next 20 years, we'll see more innovation than we have seen in the last 100.
Absolutely. In your opinion, who makes the best UX or UI designers for the consumer, developers or marketers? Ooh.
Um, so if you think about the process, and we're living in a very agile world, right? And we're thinking about things where it's now individuals and interactions over tools. And I put this in my speech a bit. It's simplicity over complexity, right? It's how you do things. There are things like cohort analysis where we measure every keystroke and every piece, everywhere you go, and when you stop using it, and where most people are gravitating to. So we're learning all the time through data. So we have somebody that will create something based on some experiences or test cases, but the people that are going to create the best are the people that are listening the most. So we might think we've created the best mousetrap, but what we're going to find out over time is we're looking at and learning from our customers' use of it every minute of the day what it really is. So I think it's an evolution. Now, I love UX, UI people because they understand basics of what we have to do, but if you combine that with the power of something like a Watson, oh my gosh, think about where we're going to go to when Watson's deciding what the best layout would be for swiping your finger on a phone with a design. It'll be fantastic.
I'm thinking it'll be fantastic or it'll be Terminator.
Maybe a little.
Fantastic. So how will the industry be able to deliver an engaging user interface when devices keep getting smaller and smaller, for example, with the watch technology? I think we need to pause until voice recognition comes into its own.
Yeah, or mind melding, right? Why would you go right to voice? Why don't you just go to your thoughts? Why would we stop at voice? Voice is just so common. We're thinking that's the next play. It's not the next play. It's going to be interactive like you think. It's going to be fantastic.
What are your thoughts on the new wearable technology and the watches and all that good stuff?
Sometimes I think of them as fads. And I think fads aren't really lasting, but I think it's evolutionary where it's helping us grow on what's possible, right? So I remember when my kids in school would come home and tell me how many steps they did because that was part of their PE class to count how many steps in a day, right? And we all bought a Fitbit to see how it worked, and you can buy things to see how you're sleeping and make it better. And it becomes, yeah, there you go. But it becomes like everything else. I look at the world of social software. Social software is fantastic, but then we had 50 social software platforms to do different things. And it became a real bother to have to log into 50 platforms to do things and look at 50 activity streams and have to manage all these accounts. So what happened is social software, unified communications got embedded into actual business workflows and things that matter. The same thing's going to happen with wearables and devices. When it becomes part of your daily life and routine and it's not just another device to do it, it's going to become so much more beneficial. So today we have to wear it on our wrist. Tomorrow we'll just simply see on our smartwatch or our phone the results without of any of the 50 things that we're monitoring that we want to look at a given time. That's when it becomes really useful as opposed to having one device for one need.
Mm-hmm. So what about something like Google Glass that even now can maybe integrate some of those things that you're talking about?
Yeah, mine's still in my box. I've never even opened it. It sounded like a great idea, but I haven't found that need yet for myself, other than if you want to take a picture by blinking, right? So I don't know. I think, again, as I say, maybe that becomes that federation piece where it unifies all the devices. Then it'll be really useful for me. Maybe when it doesn't look quite so awkward and it just becomes part of our natural sunglass wear, it'll be better. But these are the things I'm talking about through evolution. So there's small steps for kind of the early adapters, and then there's mainstream when it actually becomes useful for everybody because it's just part of an extension of what we do.
Excellent. Thank you. Great talk, Paul. Question, the part about booking an airline ticket. Recently, I traveled for business and was pretty much an identical trip to my last business trip. I was surprised that United's website didn't ask me if I wanted to duplicate my last trip. Do you agree we have a long way to go with the online user experience?
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest concerns are the companies through large M&A acquisitions, and I won't call anybody out, but let's say about your cable operator, and you can say the same about the airlines. What happens is they've built a platform, and then they buy 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 10 companies, and they're growing at such a rapid speed, but they're not integrating the platform. And to me, that's the fatal flaw of the industry. If I was the CEO of a large airliner or of a large cable company, the first thing I would do is create an outcome for a customer experience that was the same for everybody and was fantastic. And as an end user, I would use it. So I'm kind of flabbergasted when I go on some of these sites or I call somebody. God forbid you have to actually call somebody now. They put you on hold, and then you have to go and give your information again. You type your credit card in your Bluetooth while you're driving or as a passenger, and then they come online and they want you to ask your credit card information again. So we have a long way to go, and I think that's why startup companies have such an advantage, because they have a smaller audience, they haven't had 15 acquisitions, and they can make a beautiful experience. So I give a ton of credit to companies like Virgin America that have a really nice, unique interface, and they're a decent-sized company. I know they're about to go public, but I think it gets a lot harder as you grow, but I think people have to make this first and foremost. Your customer experience is everything, and they should focus on this first, and I don't know why they don't.
So with regards to companies that have been around for maybe a while but really want to focus on that user experience, what sort of recommendations would you have for them?
What do they say? Eat your own dog food, drink your own champagne, start using your own product, start seeing what the experience is. Call from 10 different places, go online 10 times, walk through your stores, ask your customers, see what they're seeing and feeling. It's so easy to do. It's not rocket science. And it's really all about determining the usability. For instance, on Candy.io, we have a button to have a live chat. And the first time I used it, I just did not like the experience. Don't be satisfied. Don't settle. Just don't check a box. Actually, go through the effort of using it. And there's nothing more important than gaining a customer's trust and keeping it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Do you think that might then lead to sometimes people design for themselves, right? So if I'm my own biggest user and I really think that I've got the UI just right, how can I maybe step outside of that? Well, I guess you answered that. You said to talk to the customers and get their opinions on it, because I feel like sometimes people get so lost, they say, well, I use this app all the time and it's fine for me,
Steve Jobs had a great point, and he said, sometimes we have to design things for others because they only think incrementally different. Like you were saying, Paul, the watch, well, it's not usable till we go to voice. And I'm thinking, well, voice, no, it's going to be mind meld. It's your thoughts that are going to matter, right? So sometimes we have to go to where the real experts are. But I think it's a blend of three things. There's some really incredible people in certain spaces that are going to leapfrog us forward. There's crowdsourcing that's available today with technology that never been available before, that we can solve things like Count Jelly Beans to solving larger complex problems by using large crowds through technology that haven't been available to us before. And then there's things like Watson. Take the power of the unique individual expert with the wisdom of crowds and James Surowiecki and combine that with Watson, and we're going to go places as a planet.
Mm-hmm. Great. And we've got one last question here. With respect to the Internet of Things, who's going to pay for all smart technology? I'm not going to replace my washer and dryer because it will tell me my clothes have been cleaned at the optimal temperature. I think IoT being pervasive in our lives is another 20 years off. Do you agree?
Again, it depends on which cycle that you're in terms, are you an early adopter, or are you waiting for mainstream? Are you waiting, if you bought a house today, think how different it is than if you bought a house 10 years ago in terms of the entire design. And the same is going with technology and wearables. I remember when I was a kid, my parents would buy a television for 10 years. Today, you'd buy a television with 720i, 720p, 1080i, 1080p, 4K, curved, flat screen. It never ceases to change. So how often are you going to consume new technology? I think when technology becomes a lease and we simply just use all the technology for a single price and vendors become smart like we have done in the cloud, and we say, look, use my washer and dryer as a service. Don't buy my washer and dryer. Use it as a service, because I want to make sure you, my customer, I keep you happy and you have my latest all the time. That's when it becomes pervasive.
So when somebody makes a washer and dryer as a service, they owe you some money for the idea.
Absolutely. GE, you can reach me at Paul at, no.
Thank you so much. Do you have any other thoughts or anything else that you want to share?
No, I appreciate the time, and you did a great job today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us, and thanks again to everyone else for joining us today. To catch the next session, return to businessafterwindows.com. Scroll down to the Q&A sessions schedule and then check the live Q&A button. Have a good one.
Thank you.